How are we all doing?
Welcome back
Yeah, welcome back.
to,
I might just turn that just a smidge. Yeah, there we go.
to week number 6. Is it week 6?
Yeah, it must be something about that. We've been doing it for a little while now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to be, as you guys might have seen from the thumbnail, we're going to be doing this like a little bit differently from the few times we've done it previously. So Scott is going to be on tech support tonight.
That's right.
Keeping an eye on the live, pressing play for the meditation at the beginning, all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. Hey Ash, thanks for jumping on.
Hey, Ash.
Just give like a minute or two for people to jump on while Scott tries to figure out how
Yeah.
Android works.
No, I'm going to have Android works, but I don't have how YouTube works. Hey.
Oh, just live chat.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Here we go.
there we go.
I can see myself staring at the phone now. We're good. We're good.
Awesome. So yeah, today we're going to be doing things this a little bit differently. I'm going to be pretty much like just presenting a concept, and Scott will be like kind of bouncing some questions off me.
That's it.
Of course, adding anything that he has to add as well.
For sure. But
Pretty
But
smart
Jack's
doing,
the
so.
boss.
Yeah, I've got something pretty cool for you guys tonight. It's like a series of different frames for ways of like approaching, well, pretty much life as we've been discussing, but particularly the way that we interact with people that are super, super helpful. So I might even just like invite you as we like kind of step into our like our little silent meditation at the start. Hey Prue, nice to see you on again. I'll
Hey
just
Tash
invite
as
you
well.
guys.
Hey Tash as well.
Oh, hey Tash.
You jump on. Nice to have you with us live tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, as we kind of like jump into this, I'll just like invite you to kind of like maybe bring to mind, if it feels right, as we do our silent meditation, just like notice some of the things about how you currently interact with people, with yourself, and with various different things in your life, whatever comes to see what comes alive, if anything does. Otherwise, just get
Perfect. We're just
whenever you're ready.
Yeah, we'll set the timer.
Make it 7.
Yeah.
15's a little bit rough.
Let's jump around.
Go.
What's going on there? Here
Hold-
we go. Here are the
hold on one
problems. Here are the
second.
problems with putting Scott on tech support. All right, we're good.
And you wanted a starting
It's all right. It's all right. We're
Cool.
good. We know the volume's on.
All right.
Apologies. Thanks everybody for sticking with me.
All right.
Let's go.
So we'll see you in about 7 minutes, guys.
Nice one. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. That was very, very nice, as always. Always such a nice way to start these things off, actually. I really enjoy that little bit at the start.
Yeah, it's definitely something to, certainly helps me a lot, something to settle in as we get into it. I feel like you could almost see, for the people watching us at home, a change. I certainly feel one from the first little bit of all the nervous energy, then we get a little chance to
Nervous energy, I don't know what
pull
you're
a
talking
little
about.
bit out. At least less nervous energy than there was a few weeks ago.
For sure, and just like dropping down, dropping into the experience and into like being here with you guys as well. I think is like certainly adds a lot to it. It's really, really cool.
Absolutely. And so today, Jack.
Yes. Without further ado, I'm going to stop putting it off.
What, Jack? You are going to teach us about a thing called Warroh.
Yes, WAROH, as you guys would have seen in the name of the video. So this is an acronym for a series of different frames, basically that like outline principles for how to interact with, well, ideally with people, but like also with the world. As Scott and I were getting pretty meta with this with this idea a little bit earlier, which was really cool. Some of which we'll probably like weave into here because it's a really cool concept. Essentially, they're conscious relating frames. They're ways of like interacting with people and with yourself and with the world in ways that bring like attention, in ways that bring awareness, and ways that like foster the best possible relationships and the best possible outcomes, the best possible interaction for both parties or for everyone involved.
Okay, cool.
So the first one, W, is welcome everything. Welcome everything, whatever is coming up, whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're feeling, whatever the other person's experiencing or feeling, whatever they have to say, whatever ideas are there, welcome them all. Like allow everything to kind of come up, allow everything to be there. What this kind of can look like is like, so if someone is like, so if you're, I guess like if you're interacting with someone, like say we were having a conversation, because we do that sometimes. Say we were having a conversation and Scott was, you know, like I was like, I don't know, Scott was starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. And he's like, you know, maybe says like that's changing his body language, or maybe he explicitly says like, I don't know.
I'm getting
like,
uncomfortable,
like,
Jack.
Stop talking about that, man. That makes me feel ick. Which is fair. I talk about a lot of ick things sometimes. But like part of this principle is like actually like welcoming them and like, well, in that case I would say, oh, that's like interesting, like that's basically that's okay. That's totally fair, that's valid. I don't have to like necessarily get that. Maybe we can go into that and maybe we can not, but just accepting that is this person, like that is this other person's experience.
Yeah.
And that's totally valid. That's like, there's nothing wrong with whatever the other person is feeling. And for that matter, there's nothing wrong with what you're feeling as well. So if someone else, it's like the same is true the other way around. If someone else, if Scott's saying something and I'm going like, ugh, then like I will like, you know, like to welcome, like in welcoming everything, I can acknowledge that and say, oh, like I'm feeling some stuff happening or some stuff coming up. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with the fact that I'm feeling this way. There's nothing wrong with the fact that this is coming up. There's nothing wrong with the internal dialogue that's going on in my head.
Yeah.
It's all a part of my experience, and that's okay.
Yeah, cool.
It's pretty much what this principle is about. Just welcome everything.
So
everything.
So a question that comes to my mind, or an idea, I suppose what you're sort of saying, right? It's like if the opposite of this is if we try to push things away. Yeah. So and so this in some way that's almost maybe the trigger for us to realize when we have an opportunity to use this frame is if something comes up that we're noticing that we're trying to reject. If for example, I suppose if I see you getting uncomfortable and I notice that I'm starting to deny that or come up with some story to like that maybe is going to be a time or an example of a time when I'll have a chance to try to bring this into action this?
Yeah, potentially. And I guess like a good part with that is like, yeah, so that's a good example. Like a good example of when you're of not doing this is if you're like noticing someone basically it's like trying to fix whatever the other person's what it is experiencing, trying to change it. Like that's not okay if so if you notice me being uncomfortable and you're like, oh, it's not okay that you're uncomfortable, let me try and fix that. That, I don't know if you guys have this experience, I find when I try and do that, that often does the exact opposite of what I wanted to do. Because I'm like, what that kind of like, and I imagine a lot of people have this experience. I'm sure you guys have experienced this as well. You've probably experienced this too. Often all we kind of need in those kinds of situations is to be acknowledged that something is happening. Because we don't even know what it is, right? But like if I start noticing like subtle things that indicate to me that Scott's feeling uncomfortable, which is not necessarily, which we'll go into in a second, but doesn't actually necessarily mean that he's feeling uncomfortable. If I start to notice those things and suddenly start to try and tinker with and play and like essentially invalidating his experience, then that's going to push him away from me, not invite more interaction. Another the example that's comes to mind is like, oh, you're angry, just calm down. Please tell me if that has ever worked for anybody.
Sometimes people are angry after it gets said.
Yeah, totally. I wasn't before, but a counterexample, so a way to apply this is like, oh, hey, I'm noticing that something I'm noticing that something, it looks like something's going on. Maybe have a guess at what it is. Like, are you feeling uncomfortable? Like, are you feeling uncomfortable with that? Are you okay, basically? And is there any is there anything you want to say or anything you want to invite whatever that is to kind of come forward? It's like answering the door for someone, right? To welcome someone into your home, you answer the door and you invite them in. So that's a huge part of this, is like invite whatever, not just allow it, but also invite it to come into the interaction, whatever that may be.
Cool.
And that includes, for that matter, the desire not to welcome stuff. Like if you're really going to implement this principle, that welcoming everything includes not wanting to welcome stuff. Because that's also okay, right? Like some stuff we just don't want to go into. Sometimes it's not the right time. Sometimes I just don't want to talk about that, or this is you're not the person I want to talk about that with, or whatever. That's also okay. It's not always the time, it's not always the place, and just because it's coming up doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it right now. Was there anything you wanted to ask or chuck into that before I dive into the next one?
No, I feel pretty good, I think. No, awesome. That one feels quite round to me. Yeah. Cool.
And you guys, by the way, are also free to ask any questions. If anything isn't making sense, if anything is really resonating as well, if you really agree or really disagree, it's all welcome, guys. Come on, check us some questions, let us know what you think, and we'll kind of Scott will be keeping an eye on the chat for me as we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That said, I don't assume that you guys are necessarily going to do that, because the next one is assume nothing. Don't assume that you know or assume that you don't know is probably a better way. Assume that you don't actually know what's going on for the other person. Don't make assumptions that oh, okay. I think I guess a really good one is if you notice the person you're interacting with feeling uncomfortable, don't assume you know why they're feeling uncomfortable, and don't actually assume that they feel uncomfortable in the first place, because if you do that, first of all, you can be kind of putting ideas in their head and putting feelings into their body that were not there in the first place. Because what, am I supposed to feel uncomfortable? Are you saying something that outrageous? What's going on here? But also, The thing that just because something might make you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean that it will make the other person feel uncomfortable. There's no it's like, oh right, you're upset because I said this and I did that thing the other day, and so you're upset because of that. Probably not. Maybe.
Yeah.
But actually, that takes genuine inquiry, right?
Yeah.
And a huge part of this is accepting that you don't actually know what's going on inside the other person's head. You know some of the stuff that's going on inside your head.
Yeah.
At best. You don't actually know what's happening for the other person. You don't know what their experience is. You don't know what's happening there. And the best way to kind of, work with that in a way that works for both parties is to assume that you don't know what's happening. And that way it actually makes it kind of more fun. It makes the interaction more interesting. You can, be a bit more collaborative and play a bit more easily. And you actually, that's another part of inviting the other person to interact in a more meaningful and more connected way.
Yeah, nice.
Do you have any questions on that one?
I have a comment on this one.
Yeah, please.
I feel like this one resonates very strongly with me because I know that when someone does try to assume something sometimes about how I'm feeling or something like that, and if they get it, I guess sometimes they get it right and it's fine, but sometimes they get it wrong, and then it can really I really notice that, or it's often make me feel quite separate from them, or really quite misunderstood, and so it's one that I notice that it definitely has a real tendency to create a separation. And I think it's also something that to be honest, I feel like it's one that I have had to and still continually have to work on, because it's something that I think I grew up being told I was a smart little boy, and so I try to be smart and know everything about everybody. And
I don't know anything about that.
And so it's definitely, this is one that resonates really strongly for me. It's probably a core thing, one for me to probably work on it, really enacting maybe, as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's really cool. I really like it.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, man. That's really cool. And I think another one I would like to kind of chuck in here as well is that includes actions, right? So say someone, I don't know, classic share house kind of situation, or partner, living with a partner kind of situation. They left their cup on the sink again. It's because they know it pisses me off when they do that, and they're doing it to spite me. Probably not. Maybe they know you that well and they just really love ticking you off. But probably not.
Probably not.
I think if you're going to assume anything, it does. Yeah, I know. The principle is assume anything, but one piece I would like to kind of chuck in here as well is, if anything, assume positive intention. Assume positive intention, both for other people in what they're doing and for yourself as well. So if you're doing something that you don't like, and this is a great way to apply this to yourself, these things actually get super, super interesting when you start mirroring them back and turning them on yourself. Assume nothing, but if anything, assume positive intention. If you're doing something or finding yourself beating yourself up about something that you're doing that is not, that you think that would know is bad for you, don't assume that that's because of some, because you're, for example, a terrible person.
Yeah,
right?
Gotcha.
Assume, if anything, that there's a good reason why you're doing that. That's actually meeting a need in yourself.
Yeah.
Just as that, whatever another person is doing will be meeting a need for them. They probably just left the cup on the sink because they were in a rush.
Yeah.
Or because they had their mind on something else. Maybe a present for you. Had this really nice thing they were going to do for you, and now you're getting all angry at them, and they're like, well, I'm not going to take you away for a nice weekend. You can do that at the moment.
In a few weeks' time.
But that's it. Assume positive intention if you're going to assume anything, and it makes it just makes the interaction much smoother, and it can be a bit disarming for your own just internal dialogue as well. It makes it a lot easier to to approach someone and to actually ask and find out. There's a lot of A's here, like actually ask and find out what's going on. If you assume that there's something positive behind there that's trying to happen, rather than something horrible or negative.
Yeah, amazing. Cool.
Are you satisfied with that?
I am. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Are you guys
definitely.
satisfied with that? Are you happy? I don't want to
Yeah,
assume.
do we have any more questions here? We do have one comment. Prue says she hard relates, and I think that one did come while we were talking early on about assuming nothing.
Nice.
Yeah,
very,
I'm with
very
you.
good.
I'm with you. And we also, Tash also, a fan of the concept of welcoming but not pressuring.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tash.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tash.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right. So the next one, the third one, which is reveal your experience and share impact.
This one's for Ninja.
This one. For Ninja.
This one's for Ninja.
Why is this one for Ninja? Actually, I actually don't know.
Because I feel like this is one that I've learned from. This is one he's talked about, right? Go first. I feel like is Ninja's version of this. But anyway, I'm taking it away.
No, that's perfect. That's actually really good. I hadn't actually connected that, so that's really awesome. In this context, like reveal your experiences, like I guess like kind of moving on, like because this is all together is like a package principle, right? Like they work best in harmony with one another. If you're like not assuming, the next step is to actually speak to what is going on.
Yeah, beautiful.
Like, actually, share your experience. Like, what is actually happening? It's like cool. Like, so if I was to say to you, like, it looks like you're a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know if that's actually the case or not, but like, I'm wondering what's kind of going on for you. That, if Scott was also playing, which he probably would be because we get along pretty well, thankfully. The next step in that is to reveal your experience, the reveal your experience part. Like actually say, oh, this is what's happening. So maybe a really interesting thought has just gone up in his brain and he's like trying to process it. It's like, whoa, that's done some really cool stuff. Maybe he is really uncomfortable. So I hope you're not uncomfortable by the way, Scott.
Maybe a thought's gone up in my head and I'm uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of everything.
Totally, yeah. It could be a little bit of everything. Or it could be like absolutely none of that. It could have just been like, maybe he had like an itch on his face and he was trying to scratch it with his hands. I don't know. We do that too. But yeah, revealing your experience like allows the other person or like even yourself, right? You can do this to yourself as well. It actually like allows inquiry, which is one of the things that we've talked quite a bit about on these sessions. It allows inquiry into and to the actual actual understanding to come out of whatever is happening.
Yeah.
So like, and then you can kind of like map the territory together, right? So. Say the cup thing, right? Like I was really busy, I was on a business call, whatever. I didn't have time to, or maybe I was actually gonna come back to it. I didn't want to make more washing up. So maybe there's like a consideration part there. This is where it kind of comes into the actual interaction space. And then sharing impact is another part of this as well. So this is like particularly, I guess there are two sides of this I would like to address. One is like the side when like someone is being like unpleasantly triggered, or like getting upset with something. It's like when you do this or when this happens, I feel really uncomfortable and I feel these sensations and whatever. Like those things, like whenever these things happen, this happens to me, not necessarily not assuming that you're meaning to make me feel this way, but when that happens, this happens for me. This is the impact that those actions or those experiences have on my experience.
Yeah. Cool.
That's what that does to my internal world, and that's what that ends up looking like. And that's obviously quite helpful in when things are like not great and when you're not getting a great response, or the response isn't good. But it's also really, really awesome when the response is a really good one. So if someone does something that really lights you up or that you really like, share that too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, oh man, Scott, I fucking love it. Excuse my language. I love it when you like I come in and you've like restocked my room with towels. Like that is just so cool. Like I really appreciate that. That makes my whole day so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's awesome, right?
I already feel like I want to restock your room with towels before my next
Side
shift.
bonus.
I can feel it working already. I'm not even kidding.
Awesome, man. And that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you like it has this principle has this amazing dual effect of both if you apply it or when you apply it, of both helping to understand and disarm unpleasant results for the for everyone involved, and also amplifying and improving positive results as well. So the positive experiences become more positive and more frequent, and the unpleasant ones become less impactful and less frequent. Hopefully.
Yeah, amazing. I really love this. This is something because we've had a couple chats over the last week as we were talking, getting ready for this. And the one thing that I hadn't quite seen until I'm starting to see now is the way that they weave together so perfectly. And like I guess the thing that really just like clicked for me in that is this idea of like, if I get told just assume nothing, right? And I feel like that's something I've heard before, but you kind of go, well, that's what I've learned how to do. What am I going to do instead? Whereas this kind of is like, I can kind of quite clearly see now that like, it can kind of like really clearly see there's this option, right? And it's maybe sometimes it'd be a slightly like scary, a bit more uncomfortable option, but it's like, okay, if I'm starting to assume certain things and come up with a story, I'm now getting, instead I have an option, instead I can be honest and talk about how I'm feeling, right? And share the way that it's done. And I feel like it's a really, that just feels so practical and quite and very clear, which is really powerful. It's cool. I'm getting excited.
Awesome. It's great, man. That's fantastic. I love that. Really, really, really glad. All right. So the next one, so on to number 4 now, is own your experience. So this part is where like personal responsibility starts to come into it. So, and it's also about like not blame. This is like a huge part of this is not blaming the other person for what's happening and for what you're experiencing. So I guess to use like the negative or unpleasant emotional experiences one again. It's like, I guess like where it's a lot of this is in the way that you phrase things, and a lot of this is in the way, and it's actually like quite empowering when you do this. This is about like saying like, okay, like something has happened that is pissing me off, but I'm the one who's getting pissed off. Like I am the one who's experiencing anger, and I'm also responsible for what I do with that. Like, and say Scott's the one making me feel angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I then choose to do with my Scott might be Scott's just doing a thing really. Like arguably, this like regardless of what it is, the thing that Scott was doing is kind of neutral. I am the one who's creating those experiences in myself. I am the one who's feeling those emotions, and I am the one who is choosing what to do with them. So if I get really angry and like I throw a massage ball at Scott's head,
Don't do that.
I'm not going to,
Don't
but now we're talking uncomfortable. But you know, like if I was to retaliate in some way, and like you know that can be anything from like you know really passive aggressive to like arguably very like overt and violent, especially in the case of something like anger. I am the one who's acting based on that emotion, and there are also like very healthy ways that I could go about that, which is like kind of like backtracking to some of those, to that like reveal my experience, like, hey man, I really don't like it when you do that. That makes me feel like this.
Yep.
And yeah, So it's like this one's all about, I guess, like accepting responsibility and not blaming the other person or outside circumstances of any form for that matter, right? Like if you stub your toe on the door, it's not the door's fault that your toe's in pain, right? Like that's basically what it comes down to. You're the one who stubbed your toe.
Yep.
Like that's it's you who is you are like largely, for the most part, we are all impacted by each other. We all interact with one another. We all influence one another constantly. But at the end of the day, I am the one creating my experience. Scott is the one creating Scott's experience, and you are the one creating your experience. And taking ownership of that is incredibly empowering because from that place you can kind of do whatever you want with it. But another part to this as well is to own your part in the pattern. So if, for example, like we're going flipping it around, say like I'm making Scott angry. If that's a response that is happening in Scott in response to something that I was doing or not doing, not restocking his towels, then I'm playing a part in what is going on in Scott. Because we are also intricately linked and because we all are interconnected. If I am always a part of the patterns that are happening around me. So if Scott and I are interacting, everything that's happening in Scott, I am in some way a part of. Like he probably wouldn't be feeling that way at all if I wasn't there. And vice versa. And so if I'm like, this is kind of like a nice counterbalance to the whole like own your experience thing, which can be like quite confronting. Especially when you're like interacting, like doing this with another person. If I'm interacting with someone and they're really upset, yes, that is their experience. And yes, I am also playing a part in that experience that's playing out for them. In some way, shape or form. And it's up to me to decide, in owning my own experience, how I choose to approach that and what I do with that. If I want to continue to make that happen, which hopefully I don't, then I can continue to make that happen. But if I would like to, if I have like a positive intention for this person, then I'm probably gonna do something with that.
Beautiful. I really like that as a balance. I feel like this first half of it feels like that's about feeling empowered and not blaming others, right? Not blaming the world and not feeling like a victim. But in this second half, it's like that's also then reminding us that we still do impact everybody else, and so that then we can still be caring and considerate and compassionate, right? And still, own that we can, even though they own their experience, we can always still have a positive impact.
100%.
Cool. This is sick.
Awesome. How are we going? Any more questions? Anything like that?
No, we're all good for now.
Sweet. Hopefully you guys are loving this then. And the last one is honest is H. Honor self, honor other. And this is all about, I guess, like coming to interactions with the intention that both people's needs are going to be met. Coming to the interaction with the idea that like I am me and I have my needs and that's totally valid, and the other person is themselves and they have their own needs and that is totally valid. And both of our experiences are 100% okay and 100% valid, no matter how different or seemingly irreconcilable they may be. We could hold completely contrary views on something, and that's okay. That's actually like totally fine. In fact, that's one of the things that makes life interesting, at least in my humble opinion. But this principle is about like holding potentially differing poles of the same experience. So like Scott and I could both, I think the movie example that you gave last week is a perfect way to outline this. So Scott was saying last week about how like he had, sometimes he had this shift of like going to watch a movie, and his internal dialogue had changed through the course of like doing some meditations and some self-reflection from that movie sucks to that movie wasn't for me. Now we could have gone to see that movie together, and Scott could think that that movie sucked or wasn't for him, and I could have thought that that was the best thing that has ever happened in the entire history of everything. You know, like that could have been like, that could have like blown my mind and like totally changed my world. And both of those things are totally okay. And like maybe I like totally disagree with Scott and think that that's crazy, and he's probably also thinking like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? But both of those are totally fine.
Yeah.
And this is about being able to like, you know, and maybe we talk it out and we just cannot agree. You know, like, oh, the acting and the CGI and all of the things. It's just, nah, man, it was all wrong. And maybe we can't come to any kind of agreement on that. That is also totally okay. Like it's not like we don't have to agree on everything. And we can both kind of come to that interaction. Or, you know, even one of us, this actually doesn't take both parties playing along consciously to happen, because kind of like almost like by osmosis, if you're playing interaction this way, then it kind of has a pretty awesome osmotic effect of flowing into the other person as well, because they can feel it. And be like, cool, we can just like agree to disagree.
Yeah, well, like, I feel that's it, right? The person, when someone doesn't have that perspective, and you don't give them back that argument almost, you know, or they don't get back that thing that they need to, you know, to do this, and then it sort of just like it dissipates the conflict.
Absolutely.
Naturally.
Yeah, and this is also about like, this concept is also about like honoring our differences in general. Fact that like, you know, like we might get to that point and be like, oh, like neither is like our views on this movie are totally different. But also, isn't it fascinating that we can both go and watch this movie at the same time and have such wildly different experiences of it?
Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
You know, like this is a really powerful one for being able to find some kind of common ground, no matter how abstract it may be.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're all human. And even if our experiences are wildly different, we can still honour the fact that we are both here, we are both alive, we are both breathing, and we are, well, ultimately both going to die at some point.
Yeah.
But we are here together.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like this is such an important one at the moment as well, right?
Yeah.
Like we replaced the word movie with COVID, and you know, and it becomes a very poignant and in everyone's face example, right? As we listen 100%. To every aspect of the last 18 months that has had people with incredibly different opinions, and I've never seen something that people have found so difficult consistently to honor each other's views, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's one where we've seen so many examples of everyone finding it very difficult to do this. So I think it's a really powerful one to really, you know, put a bit of a magnifying glass on and realize that that's our choice, right? And this is, as you said, like these are relating frames, and these are things that we can use to change the way that we relate to it. And whenever we are finding ourselves, you know, rejecting that perspective of someone else, we can use, you know, this entire framework kind of to help us try to, you know, welcome those different views, or essentially work through it so that we can honour the different views of other people, and totally, still respect them, respect the views and respect the people, even if we don't always see eye to eye. Yep,
100%. And this is like one of the things that kind of all of this like wraps into for me is this is a really good way, a really useful tool for staying in your intention as opposed to forming an agenda. Because it's very easy to go into an interaction, especially if you're the kind of person like me, for example, who's like, I have an intention for this interaction, for example, and maybe that's as simple as like, oh, I want to make this person smile. If I go into that intention, if I go into there and like into that interaction, and I decide like, and that I get so focused on it that I like start to need that person to change, maybe this person's actually having like a really bad day.
Yeah.
If I go in there and I'm like really like, okay, cool, like no, like you're gonna smile, that turns into an agenda.
This is a cool distinction. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, and then you see, it's really it can happen really easily without us being aware of it. Where you can have like amazingly positive intentions, and as soon as you fixate and start invalidating the other person's experience, it starts to become an agenda, and you're no longer in intention, and you're no longer in integrity. So this is a really, really useful way, and that's actually where things like codependence come in, because then it's like, well, like you're like, you need me to change you, you need me to fix you, or like I need to be fixed on the other side, of course, and neither of those is desirable, because this is all about coming to things from wholeness. Like we are all whole, complete human beings, and all of us is totally welcome and totally valid at all times, regardless of what that is or looks like. This is a really, really, really powerful way of making sure that you are staying in integrity and in your intention, rather than flipping into an agenda. And I guess on that as well, like this is also like a practice, right? Like no one is perfect at this, but like these are all things that we can practice and get better at. And one of the beautiful things about that is that it's actually like a really interesting way that one of my teachers framed this for me was like, mastery is the process of moving towards perfection. And the way I like to think about that is basically like, if you're practicing something, you're already in mastery of it. Because if you're improving, you're moving towards perfection.
Cool, I like it.
So just by being aware of these things and like making little tweaks here and there, you're already mastering the process of interacting with the world.
Yeah, nice.
And with people. It's really, really cool.
Nice. That's beautiful. That's really nice.
Thanks, man.
Sick. I tell you what, this thing is juicy.
I know, right? I feel like I've
full
been
of
little for a while.
Little nuggets, little sparkling nuggets. You should pick up, put that one in my pocket, and I'll take this one.
You're so welcome, man.
Yeah,
it's
that's
everywhere.
nice.
I hope you guys have got some nice little
Yeah.
juicy nuggets out of this.
I feel like surely I can't be the only one seeing gold left, right, and centre.
What have we got in the chat?
Prue has also said, what a cool framework. Someone else is definitely picking up these nuggets.
Excellent.
Definitely going to be using this one.
Really
Thanks,
glad
Prue.
you like them. That's fantastic.
Cool. This is great. I'm amped.
Awesome.
I'm amped.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm really glad. It'd be really cool to see how you interact with people going forward.
Yeah.
This is like in your awareness.
Absolutely.
And I guess the best thing about this too is that like you don't need to think about it super consciously all the time. Just being aware is just like the fact that you've listened to this and are now aware of these things means that they'll start seeping into your interactions with people and with things and with yourself in really interesting ways that probably would never occur to you to think of even using them consciously.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we have been here for a little while now. And it's getting kind of late, and you guys probably all want to go back to dinner and bed and all of those kind of really wonderful things. So let's get comfortable.
Let's do it.
You might like to rearrange your seat, refresh your posture a little bit. Maybe roll your neck a couple of times, take a nice deep breath. And maybe just start to settle into a nice, comfortable position where you can really relax and just let go for the next couple of minutes. Maybe close your eyes if you haven't already. Just notice your breath deepening. And just let yourself slow down and relax any tension that you notice in your body. And you might notice some sounds around you, and that's okay, because you can just welcome them all, since noticing them just means that each one you do notice will effortlessly take you even deeper into a nice meditative state. That's right. And I'd just like to take a moment as you continue to drift down into this nice, relaxed, meditative state, to just acknowledge how well you've done to absorb all of this tonight. To thank you for your openness and your receptivity, and for being here and showing up today. It's truly an absolute pleasure to be able to share some of these wonderful things with you all. Because it's funny, actually, how just being aware of different ideas, even if you only hear them once, can suddenly open up and begin to transform so many different aspects of your life, completely effortlessly. How just listening to new things or hearing things again that you've heard before can make life easy and can expand and grow the ways in which you do things, so that you continue to grow brighter and more resourceful with every passing day. And I wonder, I'm really actually super curious and quite excited for you to find out just what would be possible the next time you find yourself interacting with certain kinds of people. What specific things you'll be saying, particular things you'll notice and hear, certain feelings that you will be able to feel and communicate. And just how cool it will be when you can just light up the people around you just by being you. And it's funny how easy this can be. As you do this now, with increasing ease and effortlessness, with every passing day. Slowly bring yourself back to the room now. Start to notice thanking those parts of your body, thanking all the parts of your body as you continue to spread your awareness up through your abdomen, chest, arms and shoulders and fingers, up through your neck and your head, and feeling your eyes begin to flutter as you slowly bring yourself back up into the room, only as fast as feels safe and comfortable to do so. Gently bringing yourself back up into the room. And just noticing what's different when you have this now. I look forward to hearing just how well things start to go for you guys, because that's pretty cool, and these are some pretty cool ways of interacting with things. Like I was saying before, you can apply this to the ways that you interact with strangers, the ways you interact with your partner, the way you interact with your family, the way you interact with just anyone in general, like your mates, yourself. A really good one is with yourself. But you can also apply this to like areas of your life. Like you can apply these things to your physical health, to your body. Mm-hmm. It'd be super, super cool. Like I would love to hear what happens for anyone if you were to start applying these to different parts of your life. Because I've experienced some pretty cool things there myself. Mm-hmm. It's pretty fascinating. And yeah, it changes a lot of things very, very quickly.
Cool.
Like a lot becomes possible.
Amazing. Are there any specific examples that come to mind of ways in which this has impacted you? Or am I opening a big can of worms here?
It's a big can of worms, so maybe I'll just slot this in a little bit to finish up. So a really good way, like a really good example of applying this to yourself, and particularly applying this to a particular part of your life, is with your physical health. So say you injure something and your body starts sending you signals saying, hey, you should probably like stop doing that thing. If you ignore that, or if you tell your body like, no, shut up, like don't tell me that, I'm gonna keep, like say you hurt your ankle, like no, I'm gonna keep running, I'm gonna keep doing that. Mm-hmm. You know, like imagine you were on the receiving end and that wasn't your ankle you were talking to, it was your ankle talking to you, or like someone else talking to you, and you were hearing that like, shut up, stop telling me stuff, I'm gonna do things anyway. Mm-hmm. That doesn't feel particularly good, mm-hmm. right? So like those, like allowing those signals, like welcoming those signals from your physical body is like super important. Mm-hmm. And it has some, like that is a huge part of the healing process. The next part with like assume nothing. Well, like, you know, maybe you can't run, but like, you know, maybe things are sore. Maybe you can't do the thing that you wanted to be doing, but maybe you could do something else that doesn't, like, my ankle hurts, that doesn't mean that I can't move, that doesn't mean I can't exercise at all, that doesn't mean that doesn't like suddenly shut down and mean, I have to stay in bed and do nothing. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that at all. That means that like maybe you need to like be a little bit gentler on one thing or the other. There's my alarm. Maybe that means that you know, you might need to change things, but it's going to take some genuine inquiry to find out about that. Maybe you need to change temporarily. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a good thing to be aware of anyway, because your body's needs change like day to day as it is anyway. Don't assume that you know what's going on there. Mm-hmm. Next, I guess like the reveal your experience, share impacts. That's I guess just if you're doing this to yourself, just like being aware of like what the actual impact of that is. Mm-hmm. Like what have you kind of like what is the actual impact of this injury? Like getting real with yourself, and then owning your experience, yeah, I did that. I did that to myself. There was some, maybe it was the way that I was moving. Maybe my movement patterns are not fantastic, and there's something I can work on in there. And a really good thing with that, especially with injury healing, is if you're aware of those things, then you can change them. And as one of my teachers loves to say, injuries are actually the perfect time to do these kinds of things, because when you have, they kind of force you to slow down. And the way my teacher likes to describe any of these things is slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. So if you're forced to slow down, then you can get really good at doing a new pattern smoothly. And when when you've got that going smoothly, you can do it really, really quickly. So you'll actually come out of that injury better than you were before you were injured.
No, I like that.
You transform it into something really, really amazing. And then honouring self, honouring others, that's honour where you're at. Be real with yourself. If you can't do something, you can't do something, and that's okay. And just accepting where you're at.
Cool, amazing. I love it.
Awesome.
Sick. So let me just have a quick check. Do we have anything else in here? No, I think our chat's good.
Awesome.
So thanks so much, everybody.
Yeah, thanks guys. That was a pretty hefty one. Thanks for sticking around for that.
Yeah, but
you guys got a lot out of it.
Lots of great stuff in it. So I feel well worth it. I feel good about it.
Me too. I feel good talking about that.
So thanks so much, everybody.
Yeah, thanks guys. I really appreciate you being here.
Have a great week, and we'll see you. We'll see you next
time.